Good day, everyone. I'm Jerma. Welcome back to the Wapplewood podcast. We are when this comes out, it's going to be the 28th, the last week of June. So I hope you all had a good June. We're not going to have a guest this episode. It's just PapaLlama and I. PapaLlama, how's your June gone? Do you have any plans to do? What have you done?
June. Well, last week I did a barbecue tour for Father's Day in my father's hometown of Kansas City,
Ooh,
Missouri, and I
that's very,
got to meet bears. That was crazy. How's that
oh,
for wild?
that's
Yeah,
great.
so yeah.
Was that spontaneous or did you pre-plan that?
I kind of knew like where he lived, and so I hit him up. I knew we were gonna be passing by there, and I said, "Hey, do you want to meet up for lunch? We'll be in the area, around lunchtime." And he said, "Yeah, sure." I took him some barbecue. Hopefully, it carried well. It was uh, sticky
Ooh,
barbecue chicken drumsticks, and it was some pulled pork, but it was all like vacuum sealed and stuff. It's hard to keep pulled pork great. Both pulled pork and brisket suffer from the same problem, which is like the moment you pull them, the moisture begins leaving, and
mm,
like hopefully it turned out well. But yeah, so we just met up. We were like, we've talked a bunch, and I think both of us have like some similar, like we're in trade fields. I say trade. IT's when I joined it, it was kind of a trade field. We're both in kind of trade fields, and I think both of us don't have college degrees, so like we have some similarities, and he comes, and so we've gotten along. We've talked. I used to talk to him before on VC before he was a mod. So yeah, we met up. It was really cool. He got to meet the whole llama clan. He met Papa Llama, Brother Llama, Grandpa Llama, and Papa-in-law, or father-in-law, Papa Llama. I don't know, father-in-law Llama. I don't know how this rolls off the tongue, but he
mm,
got to meet a whole bunch of us.
wow. Well, lucky bears. It'd been very funny if it was just had your card broken down and you had to go to his automotive thing and have him repair it, and they're like, oh, you sound like someone I know.
That would have been funny. Although he's automotive, but it's like I don't drive a garbage truck, so
Fair, fair.
I don't
It
drive
would
a
have been
garbage truck.
particularly bad if you ran into him at line in a confessional again.
That would have been funny.
You
Yeah,
would just
so
have to keep your head on a swivel from every time on out.
dude, it's funny. Snails. So for those who are listening to this and don't know, I met Snails. So I had just joined CDD. I'm staying in confession line doing the one thing you're probably not supposed to do. You're supposed to be worried about your confession, but I pull up Discord, and I actually wasn't even on CD. I was talking to somebody in a private message, and this short little woman leans in and she's like, "Do you know Papa Llama?" And I was like, I guess she had seen the avatar on the screen. I was like, I am Papa Llama. And she just perks up. She goes, "Hi, I'm Snails." I was like, ah. I was like,
Wow.
ah. So I've always joked that, like, I'm not opening Discord anymore in confessional. And she's like, "Oh no, I was grossly rewarded for this." So I pay attention. I was like, that's not good.
It's, man. Big ups to snails for at least getting something from looking over someone else's shoulder.
I know, isn't that funny?
Like even if I did run into somebody, I do not think I would have the self-confidence to just admit that I was watching over their shoulder.
I think it
But
was just an opportunity she couldn't pass up, right?
that's true. That's true. It's like, I mean, like, sure, if it was just someone who had a CDD icon, I'm like, I'd pass. But if I look over someone's shoulder and it's just like Volkov, I'm gonna say something, man. It's Volkov. I say
Exactly.
that, and I realize I had this conversation earlier today with a whole bunch of the higher up and former admin that a lot of people on the server just never even talked to.
Well,
The
people like live in their own little channels here.
mhm,
Like I'm not even in all the channels. You're probably more than I am, but there's a
uh,
number of people I don't run into like on the server because I'm just not in those channels.
I mean,
I'm sure that's the same story for everybody.
I'd have a jerk confession to make. I have the chapel, exploring Catholicism, liturgies and devotions, and Catholic aesthetics all muted and closed. Don't look
A
at them.
Germeshian, if you will.
A Germission. I don't even. I look at faith discussions only when I'm pinged down there. Sometimes I swing by the chapel, but I tend not to go in that area. And so
Yeah,
it's just
faith
like they're
discussions
not
seem to make my head spin.
faith discussions. It's the sort of thing where I don't know. There's something to it. It's like to some degree, it feels like it has more impact than politics discussions, which is both ludicrous and entirely sensible at the same time. But
Yeah,
also,
it's and
yeah,
there's always a lot of questions that either have been answered somewhere else on the internet
hmm
or that and not to sound uppity, or I could ask my priest. I don't know how else to put that. It's like we do have priests and deacons on the server, which is very helpful and that is nice. And
yeah.
they probably I imagine if I was in there, they probably spend a lot of time in there, right? So I would
I'm not
imagine that's
sure.
probably one of the places I would think that they would be. But anyways, yeah, I haven't had a huge need. I've gone in there every now and then, but it's not my I don't know. There's also I find that if I'm looking for a serious discussion, I find a lot more meaning and I get better answers in person. And that's not because people on the internet aren't smart, but when I see people in front of me face to face, I tend to have a better realization. Like I know who they are when they're telling me that. It's just some name on the internet that I don't know. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that's my own personal problem with having like people on the internet. I almost always view as slightly distant.
That
It's hard for me to. Back when I started the internet, like people were just weird amorphous blobs of code.
hmm
They weren't actually people. You didn't treat
yeah,
them like such.
that's one of the things that really just kind of freaks me out about the way a lot of the youth use the internet. Cause like, have you heard of the what they call trigger lists and like DNIs and whatnot?
DNI sounds familiar, but no, I don't know
So
triggered lists.
basically, the concepts are in your bio, you would put a list of people you don't want to
Ah,
talk to and things you don't want to talk about.
yeah, okay, I've heard
And you
of
give
that. I get
people,
that. Trigger warnings.
and it's the sort of thing where I'm just like, who would put such a long list of how to make you greatly upset in their bio and then throw it
Who
out onto the internet?
People like
It's
that are exactly
dangerous.
why I say the internet is not real life. Like imagine living a life like that in real life. Like your friends would all have to walk on eggshells around you, scared to talk
I
about
mean,
certain. Like they just wouldn't hang out with you. They would stop inviting you to things. That's what
I
would
mean, it's
happen.
the
You'd be
sort of
like,
thing.
"What happened to my friends?"
There are some things where, like, I have some friends who you just don't talk about certain things with them, and it's like, yeah, sure, it makes sense. But that's something you just understand implicitly because you talk about it once and they didn't have a very good reaction, so you just don't talk about it again.
Yeah,
Whereas having a list that you have to check is, I think, there's a very big difference there. And it's also the sort of thing where, like, that gives a lot of information about you. Like, I'm, I'm very old-fashioned in my people shouldn't have like that much public-facing information on the internet.
mm.
But
You and Mrs. Llama would get along. I agree
mm,
with that, you guys, but Mrs. Llama is extremely hardcore on this point.
yeah, it's mystifying to me how upfront people are about a lot of their stuff, and I'm like, yeah, sure, it makes sense. Because there's a lot of stuff that you'd say to into a walkie-talkie, but you wouldn't say on the internet. And now people are
Hmm.
starting to say the same stuff because it's like, well, the internet's just another tool of communication. You would say it on
I think
a
social
letter.
media is what did it.
Yeah,
Social
the
media
social media is
really,
the issue.
yeah, people could do that. They were just
Mhm.
all of a sudden like they could put whatever they wanted on the internet, and it was
Yeah,
permanent.
the internet doesn't let things go. That's the internet doesn't forget.
Yes, yes.
The
I noticed. Speaking about the internet, real fast, I
mhm.
noticed you were having. You, I feel like this month you've been having some slight like politics withdrawals. I keep finding you in the middle of like pseudo political discussion in these threads.
Okay, which all right. This is something that I'm gonna say two things about. First thing,
Just teasing.
everything is political to a degree. People are gonna hate me for saying that, but it's true. The second thing is like half the time I'm like, oh, this is a fun conversation, and then it becomes political. And the other half of the time I walk into anime and they're talking about the implications of Japanese politics on anime, and I'm like, guys,
Dude.
this is a text
I
all about anime. I'm not reading this politics stuff.
I want you to know, I saw all of that like going on in the anime thread, and I just thought about you. I was like, "Where's Jerma when you need him?"
And then I
I was
just
like,
showed
"Where
up
is
and
he?"
I was like, oh, what? This is the politics guy. Get it out of here. And then
I
it
made sure to
died.
give you the Yujiro Hanma gif.
Um, I'm sorry, did you say Jeff?
Yes, it's a GIF.
Oh.
Hey man, I don't ask Bill Gates how to pronounce Microsoft, and the guy who made the GIF called it a GIF. He gets to define it. That's
No, he
how life
doesn't.
works.
That's not
Yeah,
how
he does.
language works. We're not getting into this. No, I refuse.
It's a proper noun, man. He calls it whatever he wants.
You, the creator of something, doesn't get to decide how the name is pronounced.
Sure, he does. Lots of them do. That's where you're
Uh,
wrong. Lots of them do.
they do, and if everyone agrees, then great. They do. But the way
It's just that
language
it's just
isn't
that
dictated, and this is something that the Academy Française would despise me for saying, but they're wrong. Like, you can't dictate language. And if you're trying to dictate language, you're doing something wrong.
But in order to claim that the GIF is wrong, you have to have that GIF is the wrong pronunciation. You would have to have some kind of consensus, which, based off of the large scale debates that occur, there is no large scale consensus.
I'm pretty sure there's some studies done on this. Anyway,
That would actually be an amazing
okay,
job. What are you doing? I'm studying the GIF versus GIF.
a linguist would do that.
I could
All
see
right.
that. That would be the most amazing pointless study. All right, we'll move on. We won't argue about that too long. Oh, I've got a good one for you. My brother is big into the we won't make it political. We're just gonna talk about the topic. My brother is really big. It's the only person I know in real life who's really big into like the urbanization topic, right? Or like the walkable cities and all that
Okay, yeah,
jazz.
walkable cities, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought like there's something going up like 15 minutes away from me. So like, cause I'm like in the middle of nowhere. So for this thing to be on the outskirts of the middle of nowhere is kind of surprising, but it's like a very, I guess, massive, place where they have like condos and apartments and they have like stores and stuff on the, like stores and restaurants and everything is kind of like this place where you can kind of like live and you could theory and there's a park there anyways you can kind of like walk. It's like a weird mix of like density like but it's so separated. It's like dense housing but so separated from an actual dense area you still need a car to leave.
Yeah.
Like, and so he doesn't see. He has some name for it. It was like REIT or something was like the abbreviation, and he wasn't so happy about it. And I was like, "This is." I thought he would be more happy, but I was evidently wrong. So I didn't know if you knew anything about what this was.
I mean, that's one of the things which is very complicated about this stuff. Because, like, let's say you live in Manhattan. There's a street in Manhattan. I can't remember which one. I'm going to say 20th. You can feasibly live your entire life in Manhattan without ever going north of 20th Street. And people do live like that. All right, looking at a map of Manhattan, 20th is like, wow. Yeah, no, it is not 20th, because that's like south of Madison Square Park. Maybe it's 120th or something. Anyway, you can live the entirety of your life within just the island of Manhattan. And for that, you don't need a car, very obviously. I mean, it'd be horrible to have a car. But if you live just somewhere else in New York, I don't know if you don't know about Yonkers, but if you live just beyond where the public transit ends, you're by all means still in New York. You're still in a dense area, but you do need a car. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's a very complicated thing to properly do with urban design. I mean, New York is weird because it's like literally on just like a straight line of pure cities from Washington to Boston. The cities start to drop out near between New Haven, Hartford, and Worcester. But where am I going with this? Anyway,
I don't know. I
urban
was letting you go.
development is a very complicated subject. And I think people try to make walkable areas without considering what needs to be walked to. There's a Irish skit I saw about. No, sorry, it wasn't Irish. It was Australian about some business group that wanted to build a new development. And it was, it's a wonderful community. It's a wonderful community. And so, and then the minister who had to approve it said, okay, so where's the healthcare? And then the businessman answered, just down the tracks. And they said, okay, where's the school? Just down the tracks. Where's the grocers? Just down the tracks. Where's the public transit? Just down the tracks.
Everything's just on the tracks.
Everything's just down the tracks. So this community isn't really a community, it's just a group of homes. And of course the punchline there was public transit being just down the tracks. because you have your public
Yeah.
transit down the train line because that just doesn't work. But it's a very interesting commentary. The show in question is called Utopia. The clips I've seen are very funny. I'm not going to formally induce. I'm not going to formally endorse it though. But it's one of those things where I
Never
think
heard of it.
people like how much stuff do you need to have in a community for it to be considered walkable? Is the question.
Hmm. You know, it's funny because like where I live, here's a great example. So I live out in kind of the boonies, but we are kind of like back in a little secluded area.
Hmm.
And like there's like a group of people who build houses. You could almost call it a neighborhood, like almost, but we're
Hmm.
not. It's like not that dense and there's not that much going. But you can walk everywhere here. Like you just go around, you know, like you
Hmm.
want to go walk for a mile or a few miles, you go do that. Easy peasy, no problem. People do that like every day of my life. Everything sure is walkable. People go over to visit their neighbors, even though their neighbors aren't on top of them. Like there's a number of people who go out and help each other. And like
Hmm.
I got a neighbor across the street who some people moved in, like some of her family, and so I went out there today and met them, and like they were just out there and
Hmm.
went and said hello. You know, like everybody's nice and we can walk around, but it's not walkable in the sense that like I have to drive to get groceries.
Yeah.
It's like stuff like that. But
The
there's a strong sense of community despite, you know, those things not being on top of me,
uh,
even
uh,
though we're all spaced out.
when you say spaced out, can you see their houses from your house?
Um, the neighbor across the street, I can see a corner of it.
Okay, because
It's like 2.5 acres in there.
that's the sort of thing which I always have to check about because when up here, when you talk about neighbors, you're either referring to someone who's like right next door, or someone who's next door, but that door is 3 kilometers down the road.
Yeah, like we can all mow our lawns without at like 6 a.m. on a Saturday without bothering each other. And I say lawns graciously,
Mm.
or I'm like giving a lot of leeway there, like yards.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody here really has yards because when you live in the woods, good luck growing grass.
Oh,
Nobody has lawns. You'll never beat the clover. It's going to beat you up.
yeah.
So
The
it's funny
that's
stuff like that.
that's something I like about clovers. They're nice, they're pretty, you can tread on them, and very importantly, they don't grow too tall. Like,
Yeah, so my Mrs. Llama, my wife, she loves clovers. Like I have gotten her clover related jewelry as like many a gift. And so my excuse is I'm never gonna grow zoysia or what any of the other grasses because my wife likes the clovers. So I just leave them out there. And that woman can go out there and just pick a four-leaf clover out of the grass so easily. I can never see any of them. Like, what? How do you do
wow.
that? So I've got clovers. I'm leaving them there. The wife likes them. The kids will like them. It's all going to be okay. And you're right. They never grow too tall. Like I
Yeah,
haven't. I'm into because of I was busy. I haven't mowed my lawn in almost 2 weeks, and so but the clovers only get so tall. So you know, just go run it over. Call it a day.
it's to the point that like, at some point, why even mow the clovers?
Because it does get in the way eventually,
Hmm. It's
and there are other weeds interspersed with them. That's why.
other weed. Okay, that's a fair argument. It's there used my grandmother was in Maryland, and behind her property there was a massive open area which used to be it used to be basically a large community space, and all everyone would be able to like hang out there. There was a baseball diamond, and it was like you could walk to the swimming pool from there. And unfortunately, people stopped maintaining it. And so what used to be
Uh,
this wonderful community space with nice shortly cut grass, within a year or two, the grass grew to waist height,
yep.
and then there were ticks. And then the moment
I was
ticks
about to
showed
say,
up,
and then you could go hang out with the entire tick army.
yeah. And then the moment ticks showed up, that was shutters.
Yeah. Oh man, you know what? I had a battle with ticks
Mm.
a month ago. I ordered a big fancy grill. All right, I ordered
Ooh.
a big fancy grill. Comes in, and I was so confused because all of a sudden I had ticks in my garage, on my driveway. What
Oh.
happened? Turns out the ticks had been in like I'm sure it was in one of the trucks because it got delivered freight.
Oh,
and so it was they were all on the box. I was like, "Come on!" And they were like all around. So I had to go and like nuke my garage and my driveway with permethrin. I hate those things so much. I literally was so caught off guard. I was like in my father's truck. We are going to pick something up, and I felt something tickle the back of my neck. And this was like at the day it was dropped off. And I reached back and I just grabbed this bug and I look at my fingers. I go, hold on, I'm just holding the tick. And I was like, oh, that's good. And then later that night, I found another tick in my hair. I was like, oh, come on, man.
oh man. The
I was so
This is the thing that really kind of scares me about tricks. I mean, okay, yeah, they're lying to you. You boy, big deal. What about Lone Star Diddy? That thing scared me. What, you telling me this bug can make me allergic to meat?
I know, dude. What would
What?
I even do with myself? Like,
You
what
could
would
you
I
could
do?
break down crying. You'd have to find new hobbies. Give up.
Could I survive?
It'd be heartbreaking.
Yeah, I feel that would be almost worse than death. That would be so bad.
Man, I
Live a
just
life.
found out about that and I was like, wow.
Yeah, I've heard of that thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I go out my yard like couple, well, every couple of months, and I spray it with permethrin. And permethrin is really safe for like almost all animals except for cats. And once it dries, it's safe for everything. But it does a
Mm,
really good job of driving away everything that isn't a horsefly. Just saying, everything that isn't a horsefly.
mm.
Horseflies are immortal, and I don't understand them. They're evil.
What's really interesting about, I just looked it up, the Lone Star tick thing. So they're basically around the Gulf of Mexico and the American South, plus Iowa. And
Hmm.
for some reason, there's an invasive population in northern South America, in Venezuela and Colombia. And guess where else?
Mm, I don't know. Where else?
The upper coast of Newfoundland and Labrador.
That's weird. Okay.
Like, we're talking almost in the Arctic Circle here.
That is, why are they surviving there?
Why did they get there? That's, like, there's nothing up there that I
Listen,
think.
man, if I learn anything from the ticks on the box, the ticks can get there however they desire. Like somebody could have accidentally had one in their, luggage case and gone to Newfoundland, and then now they're just or the Arctic Circle, and now there's just ticks there.
I mean,
Like
that's a
it's
fair
okay.
argument, but also nobody, well, okay, like maybe some several thousand people live there.
It only takes one person. It
It
only
only
takes
takes
one.
one person, that's true.
And
It's like,
then all of a sudden you have a bajillion ticks.
tumbleweeds are Russian?
Oh, they really? That's
They're
hilarious.
Russian, yeah. They used to be called, like, the Russian bush or something. But they
Huh.
got imported to the United States. Uh, and there was a really, and they kind of like, oh man, they're so incredibly dangerous.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
like kudzu. We got kudzu down south. It's
Oh,
wild.
kudzu is a nightmare.
Yeah, it's pretty
Genuinely one of the most evil plants I know.
pretty crazy. It'll choke everything.
Hmm.
So, switching from our fun discussion about plans that we hate and are scared of, what are your plans as we're going into July? Got anything fun planned? Especially
Ooh,
July 4th. Well, wait, you're not even American. Why do I even ask that
I
question?
am
July 4th is
American.
for us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you live in Canada. Does you're like,
I I have a citizenship. I'm paying
are you
and filing
celebrating
my
July 4th in
American
Canada?
taxes. I Well, depends on where you live. It's not legal.
Wait, it's not legal to celebrate July 4th?
Well, you can celebrate it. You just can't have fireworks. In some provinces, you can only have fireworks
Uh,
on Canada Day and
fireworks are
Victoria
pretty
Day.
illegal. Yeah, you know what it is down here. Fireworks are pretty illegal in most places, but nobody actually like on July 4th, the police are not gonna arrest you for shooting
Yeah,
fireworks.
it's it's the sort of thing where fireworks are regulated, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And as long as you're not blowing off your finger, you're probably not going to get in trouble. But I'm not want. Don't test that guy. They do not want to hear from the ATF saying, Jerma, you encouraged people to do fireworks stuff, and somebody blew off
Did
like
you?
half of Virginia.
Is there an ATF in Canada?
No, just a normal ATF would yell at me.
They can come up there.
Well, they can yell at me by email. They can yell at me next
Uh,
time I head to a consulate.
uh
They can just put a
consulate,
letter in the post saying, Jerma, you're cringe.
yeah.
But, well,
Jerma is hereby officially cringe.
coming up, I've got a bunch of church stuff I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be grilling for basically 11 hours. For
Yeah.
and,
What are you gonna be grilling, man? You grilling
just
burgers?
burgers and hot dogs for to make sure people have stuff to eat at the event. So I'll be sitting
Man, that
there.
sounds like a blast.
Yep, I mean, sounds like a blast minus the sun and the heat, because it's getting
Nah,
warm up
man.
here, to my dismay. And every time it gets warm, I think about moving further north. And I think, well, if I move further north, it'll just get warm there, and then I'll move further north, and eventually I'll be in the middle of nowhere.
I
And I
love
mean
I
the
love
middle of nowhere.
version of warm, by the way, because I was talking to a Canadian in BC earlier, and he was like, "We have a heat advisory." I'm like, "What's your heat advisory?" And he's like, "It's 30 degrees Celsius." And I was like, 86 degrees Fahrenheit? Really? That's your heat advisory?
I mean, it's the sort of thing where you have to remember, like, the houses here, they're not made out of paper, they're made out of brick. We're used to a winter, we're not used to a heat. The 30 degrees is actually killing people.
I think you guys, I think maybe you're just weak to heat, like a Pokemon. It's super effective against you, but the rest of us have grown to resist it.
Yeah, and I think I actually, that'd be really funny having PapaLlama have to deal with a serious Canadian winter. Ever,
No,
it
I would
reminds
deal.
me,
I actually would deal with the winter up there better than I deal with the summer here. I hate humidity and heat.
mhm.
I just know how to put up with it.
Yeah, I remember when I was in school one time, and I had to bike home during a blizzard. And to be entirely honest, the worst part, from what I remember, were the other people making their way home. And like, it wasn't even the snow.
Nah.
And by the end, I was actually overheating. I was like,
Yeah, you
I'm
can
running
actually.
like,
That's one nice thing about winter is you can put on enough clothes to like go outside, do some work, sweat, and then come back inside.
yeah. And it's the sort of
So yeah.
thing where, in bad enough conditions, you start sweating and then it freezes. Then you're really in for a bad time.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Well, down here in July, it is molten hot. So I'm probably not going to do too much besides outside, besides go to my father's house where he has a pool. We're having, we've got a bunch of my sisters in town with all our kids living here for like a year, essentially, while our husband finishes up some schooling, medical schooling. And so my little llama has so many friends to play with right now. He is just so excited. And that's probably what's gonna do that. Probably do something on July 4th. I've actually taken like that whole weekend off, so I'm just gonna have like 5 days of no work, and I'm definitely gonna be dropping the kids off at daycare still, so that I can just relax. Although maybe 1 or 2 days I'll take them to like the zoo before like at like 8 a.m. or something before it gets too hot. But I'm gonna have a comfy July. There'll be plenty of barbecue involved. There'll be there's no more barbecue team, so I can just barbecue for fun and continue to give snails tons of hot meat.
Oh man, speaking of hot stuff, I'm looking at the average temperatures for your area-ish. I just looked up the entire state, and it's like, wow, average of 30? Awful. I'd be like weeping and sobbing.
Oh, and just make sure to look at the humidity that goes along with that.
I don't even want to think about humidity, man. Oh, that's
I think
nasty
today the
work.
humidity, and it was a cool. We consider this a cool day. It was 86 degrees Fahrenheit with a humidity of like 51 or something. It was ridiculous.
I'm gonna break out in just goosebumps thinking about this stuff. Oh,
Yes. Well, you can sweat to death in your sleep. I believe we have reached the end of our time. I hope everybody enjoyed the completely random episode where German and I talk about stuff
yeah.
and cover a comical amount of topics. Hope everybody has a great July. And
Mhm.
if you cook anything cool, if you grill anything, make sure to tag me in the
Ooh.
food channel.
Yep. And to men's fashion, I will be enforcing that suit ban. And I hope you guys can think up some creative outfits for July and August. Right?
Oh, you guys ban suits? It's too easy to do suits, I suppose, in a fashion thread.
Well, you could swing by and find out more about that, or maybe we talk about that in another episode. But for tonight, I'm Jerma.
And I'm PapaLlama. Have a good night.